Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody's well. Whoever's here tonight, and that's it. That's all for tonight. No. So what I told you guys I would report on the deposition. You guys forgot. I remembered. So I figured I'd give you a quick update, even though it's me saying quick, so you shouldn't believe that. But that's what we're gonna do. And we're going to discuss briefly the deposition today. And that's it. One quick, of course, I'm going to discuss one other thing. I noticed yesterday, I thought this was interesting, that they have, this has nothing to do with anything. So, but apparently they have, they're perfecting a technique. It's called ABD to aid chemotherapy. So as opposed to like making everybody sick by generally attacking the entire body, this new method, it's not a new method, but I guess it's been perfected, targets the perfect part of the tumor and as opposed to avoid the good parts. So apparently there's a lot of progress being made in that. And I found that really exciting. It has nothing to do with this video, but I just threw it out there anyway. So before I start, I'm going to talk about a deposition. So depositions are the only place you can, under oath, not remember 100 times in a day. Perfectly acceptable. Depositions are where the truth goes to find an objection. Deposition, the art of perfecting, making a witness squirm in their seat. Now, that wasn't necessarily the case today, but that's kind of the general idea. So today's deposition, taken by the Receivers Counsel, Dylan, and I thought he did a very thorough job, was of Rachel Wallit, not Wallet. Actually, it should be that. Wallit is a perfect name for this particular witness. Now, this particular witness was and is and will be a physical therapist. So in 2020, 2021, some of you who've been following this story know that David Reichman had some physical trauma, and I think he almost died, although I don't know for sure. And I don't know if he was impacted by this for long before, and I might raise that as an excuse if I were in his shoes. But apparently either in 2020, so COVID times, or 2020, he got an abscess on the brain. Now, I don't know exactly what an abscess on the brain is, but I do know it's not good. And so he suffered a deficit as a result. He required physical therapy. So one of the physical therapists was this person named Rachel Wallit. Now, if you recall, we discussed a bunch of times about all these people that got shares. Well, here's somebody else who got shares. So rather than get paid for their services, they got partially paid for their services, and they took the difference in shares. So this person received, I think they testified to, and I thought she was credible, by the way. So I didn't think she was bullshitting. I thought she was credible. I didn't think she was overly sophisticated. I think she had she believed in her value more than I did. I think she had a unreasonable view of her own value. But anyway, apparently she got something on the order of 485,000 shares. And she has about 110,000 shares left over. And she made profit in the six figures by getting those shares and selling those shares. So if she started off with, let's say, 485,000 shares, she now has 110,000 shares. She sold, let's say, 300,000 shares plus. She might have made $1 or more on those shares. So I think that's kind of the profit area she was making, several $100,000. Now, she comes from an affluent, or at least this is my impression. So I attended the deposition. I was there. It's like 5 hours, probably about 5 hours. So this is my impression of what went on and my view of her, although just my opinion. So I don't know, but I think she came from a well-heeled family. So money was not an issue. So somebody making a few hundred grand on some bullshit stock, whatever. So she performed services, rehab services, somehow privately. It was hard to kind of understand this part, but some were provided in a private situation, and then she provided it. And as a result, she received shares. Now, the board, and I think it's December 30th of 2020, the board apparently awarded her and a bunch of other people, by the way, who were involved in the rehabilitation. Why these people were getting paid, not just getting paid for providing services to Reichman, I don't know. But there were a bunch of people that got shares, and they got a clump of shares, I think generally in the order of 250,000 shares. Several people. So, we've talked about many people that have gotten shares. So she got 250,000 shares, and then she got another something like 100,000 shares for providing some services, and she would charge, her regular charge would be like 125 an hour. She then reduced that to $100 an hour. So she reduced that by $25 per hour, and somehow that equates to 100,000 shares or more. But it didn't really make a lot of sense to me, the valuation. But she ended up with a whole bunch of shares. And the way the share count worked, first of all, there would be a restriction on the shares, so you couldn't get rid of the shares. So once you got the shares, you had to hold them for a minimum of 6 months. And then on top of that, then you'd have to get a sign-off, because they were restricted shares. Who would be providing that opinion? That it's called a 144 letter. Who provided that to her? Mr. Markowitz apparently provided it to her. We've heard of him, and I really look forward to his deposition. I really do. But she justified the amount of shares she got based upon the value of her services, which would value her services like at something like at $1,000 an hour. So obscene, ridiculous, in my opinion, obscene, ridiculous valuation. But again, I don't think she was on the take or anything like that. I just think she has a unreasonable view of her value. So we went through the deposition, or at least Dylan went through, and I communicated with him also. We talked about all the communication they had. So she had some communication with Markowitz and Reichman. She was affiliated with that Hans and Rosie Epstein Trust, if you recall. That was that trust that still exists, that has about 22 million shares. What did it do to deserve those shares? Who knows? She certainly didn't disclose what, and again, I'm not blaming her, but she didn't have information to say why that trust, that charitable trust, she called it the General Charitable Trust, why that got 22 million shares. In fact, she didn't seem to know that they had that many shares. But on top of that, she was responsible or involved in setting up a scholarship committee. So she justified part of her compensation is all the work she did on setting up this scholarship committee. And for that scholarship committee, apparently they gave out $20,000 scholarships, and they paid the people, like it sounded like, and maybe I was incorrect in the way I heard this, but it sounded like she got paid something on the order of $17,000 to put out a $20,000 scholarship. Now, that doesn't sound like super efficient. And why GTII is providing scholarship, there's no reason why they do. Perhaps they should have been doing real business and providing compensation to shareholders, something like that. Anyway, so we went through that. She relied upon her father. So whenever there was a sale, her father, I guess, had access to her account. He would basically run the account. She would have been in her 20s at that time. I don't think she had a lot of trading history, but her father made the decisions. Now, what was interesting and what kind of upset her, which is kind of interesting, was that if you looked at the sale of stock involving Justine Reichman and Rachel Wallit, the sales occurred on the same day. So either there was some coordination or somebody was using somebody as a cover. And what Ms. Wallit suggested is that she was used. Now, she made hundreds of thousands of dollars, so I don't know how somebody like that could be used. But I think it wasn't clear because she didn't really clarify this, but it suggested that perhaps others were using her sales as cover for selling their own stock. That was what kind of the impetus was, or the suggestion was. So it was kind of interesting to hear somebody who made hundreds of thousands of dollars be kind of annoyed that she claims to have gotten taken advantage of, even though she claims to have provided the value of services. Now, the reason why this deposition went forward at all was because, in my terminology, her representatives dicked around. According to the record, Dylan reached out to the representatives, tried to get information. They promised information and they dicked around. And as a result, the deposition went forward, which probably can't be very pleasant. And this is a deposition just as to the shares in question, not as to everything. So the lesson to be learned, of course, is don't dick around and you'll avoid the deposition. So the basic idea was, and I think that Dylan concluded, that the witness was credible. We don't think she was trying to take advantage of GTII, but she did, in my opinion, because she got overcompensated and that the board shouldn't have given her the shares in the first place. But on top of that, what came out during it was more what's going to happen in the future. I'm sure everybody else in the position will know now that they have to be deposed and maybe they will be more responsive. But what's interesting is there's depositions that are forthcoming. Rabari, who we all know him, Markowitz, the attorney who apparently was in-house counsel, and a Mr. X. I'm not going to reference who Mr. X is, but I'm awaiting Mr. X's deposition. I'm not going to disclose the name for obvious reasons, because apparently Mr. X is going to excoriate David Reichman, is going to completely unwind him, basically draw and quarter him. And I don't think Reichman or any of those other clowns know this is coming. And I can't wait till it happens. When the deposition occurs, I will let you all know. I may ask questions also at the Rabari and Markowitz deposition. I'd be interested in asking questions to Rabari because, if you recall, he hates me and was involved in getting me sued. That lawsuit was dismissed, but was involved in getting me sued. So I don't think he will enjoy having me around. And if I ask him questions, he may not like that either. So I'm just going to put it out there, Mr. Rabari. I may ask you questions. The other guy that Mr. Markowitz also, I think, is going to be testifying. And I don't know if he's going to be testifying or he's just going to take the fifth, but I intend to ask him questions also. And Mr. X, I don't know if that's even going to be needed, but I think those events will be extremely important. There is a deposition now scheduled December 3rd. I don't know if it's going to go forward, but there will be other proceedings in December, and I will keep you advised. And when I get more information about the upcoming depositions, I will let you know. And again, the summarized deposition basically is the witness thinks she provided services as a physical therapist for Reichman, who had an abscess on his brain. Why the company was paying and not Reichman, who knows? Why her services were valued at an unreasonable number, in my opinion, who knows? But she thinks that she was taken advantage of. And it came out also there may be depositions coming up that's going to completely rip the management and board. So that's a quick summary. I told you I'd give you a quick summary. Again, this is the Hans, involving the Hans and Rosie Epstein Trust. I think it's a different Epstein. And they have 22 million shares, and they obviously, in my opinion, they shouldn't have any shares. And I'm hoping that we get a result and those shares are returned. Again, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future depositions. I will keep you apprised. That's it for tonight. Have a great evening. If I don't speak to you before Thanksgiving, have a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much turkey. Don't drink too much. Enjoy football. And we'll see you over the weekend. Be well, everybody. Take care. And